Tom, before you came on, man, we were talking a little bit about KT. I know you, me, and him had a chance to catch up in Atlanta. This is a guy that's worked for the U of A for 30-plus years. Kevin Trainer, known by KT, by you, and so many others in the media. What was your excitement level when you saw that announcement yesterday from the Arkansas Alumni Association?
Well, very much so. And, yeah, I've been buddies with Kevin. Like, even when I was covering Alabama and I would come here for games, I would check in with him, and it was Maryland back in the day, and get a parking pass for the day or whatever I would need, which was always really handy. And, years and years ago, we used to do player features on game week on a player for the other team, and I chose Matt Jones one time. And Kevin Trainer gets Matt Jones on the phone with me after a practice one day, and, Matt wasn't particularly verbose. I was trying to ask him questions about maybe running for office or something one day. I don't think he wanted to give away anything to the opposing team's media. But anyway, they set that up. So Kevin and I have been buddies for a long, long time. I mean, basically, once he took over for Rick Schaefer, and I'm just happy. I knew something would open up for him. He's so well regarded around here that you just hate that the cuts were so deep that it affected somebody like him with his seniority. And but I have pretty good faith that he's going to carry on as his moderator role at the SEC Media Days. He did one of the two teams at the SEC at the championship, college football playoff championship. He'd handle one of the two teams, and then he's been involved with the Cotton Bowl and many other facets of college athletics over the years. So I was happy to see it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were as well. You mentioned the athletic department cuts. Again, there's a lot of fluctuation, a lot of things going on, not just here in Fayetteville, but across the country with collegiate sports. One of the things that Colton and I were kicking around earlier, Tom, it's reportedly in Lexington that Kentucky is spending nearly 50%, 45% on the revenue distribution for men's basketball. Your kind of thoughts to that report, and is Arkansas the only other school in the SEC that would even consider doing something like that when it comes to their basketball program?
Well, that's a great question, and I have to say, if that's accurate reporting, 45% is probably higher, substantially higher, and maybe 20 percentage points higher than most every other, the allocated numbers I've seen that are just rough numbers, estimates for most programs. But I don't know. I mean, Tennessee would certainly want to keep its basketball team in the limelight with Rick Barnes. They've been doing well. Auburn and Alabama both have been doing well. But football is a cash cow, man. I mean, it's you've got to be able to compete in football. And honestly, that's what's been hurting Arkansas a little bit. Across the board, their sports have been doing great. They finish very well in the Learfield Cup standings every year. Mm-hmm. But the football just hasn't kept the pace.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. Tom Murphy, Whole Hog Sports, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette here on the Morning Rush. Tom, did you glean anything different or noteworthy from Sam Pittman on Thursday? Anything new that we didn't already know outside of maybe I always say Cisse. You're going to have to help me on Ishmael's last name, but anything new that you picked up from last week?
Yeah, well, they say pronounced it Cisse,
yeah.
like you just said. But that's kind of what we were told at the beginning. I'll say this. I was very much anticipating what his attitude would be like. Like, could he generate enthusiasm for the season? Because, that's one of Tommy Kraft's big takes is how can they be excited about the season? And I thought he did a pretty good job in that regard by saying, hey, we have a veteran team. I like the leadership. We're a big team. We look like an SEC team, and we also have speed. But so many pieces are going to have to fit, and they're going to have to avoid injuries at so many spots. I just think their line is a lot finer than a lot of teams on what it will take for them to be good and to challenge and to win games. I mean, because the schedule's so daunting. So, but no, I thought he had a good attitude about what the season's going to be like. I mean, to me, one of the key lines was, if I wasn't ready for this, if I didn't think we would be a good team and I wasn't ready for this challenge this year, I could have gone off to the lake, and I'm here instead. So he was ready to. He's ready to take this season on, and it's got a lot of challenges to it. The road games are so hard. Ole Miss and Tennessee, And that's before you even have a conference road game. A home game is you have Ole Miss and Tennessee, and then you still got LSU and Texas to go on the road. And all those teams are, picked higher than Arkansas in the standings. You really got to take care. You got to win. You got to beat Arkansas State week 2. You got to go over there and take care of business against Memphis, and then and see where the rest falls into place. And then you got to win your home games as well.
On those road games, Tom, you think about where they lie in the schedule with Ole Miss, and then you go to Memphis the week after, and then you come back to Notre Dame. You got that bye, and then you got Tennessee, and then LSU and Texas back-to-back later on in the season. Again, that is a schedule that a lot of other opponents would not like. I wonder, is there any thought to trying to do what Missouri is doing? I don't know if we joked about their schedule. Heck, Eli joked about it within his first opening remarks. Like, hey, thanks, Womack, for the schedule, but they also have scheduled light. And I know that there's games down the road to come, but Tom, is there any thought to trying to schedule some cupcakes to give Arkansas some early confidence before you go to the gauntlet that is the SEC that will at some point eventually be 9 games?
I'm sure they would love to be able to do that. It just hasn't worked out. I mean, they've always had A&M early on, which isn't going to be an easy game. And I don't know. They always seem to have a pretty tough conference opener. But you know what? I did not realize how quote, soft Missouri's schedule was until Eli said something, and I got to looking at it and like, holy smokes. How do you start the season with 6 games at home, before you go anywhere? I mean, Arkansas plays in 4 different venues by the time those 6 weeks are over, which is just crazy. But, as I've gone through, I'm writing, the daily team previews. Texas's schedule was thought, and maybe somewhere in the top 10 in the country. It is so flipping hard. They started Ohio State, and, they play Georgia on the road and I think Bama on the road. But anyway, a lot of the top contenders Texas has on the road, and they're picked to win the conference. And I think that is a very daunting schedule.
They got to play Florida and Gainesville too. You saw what DJ Lagway did to Ole Miss last year. Don't underestimate that game either.
No, you can't. So it's just going to be a tough run for Florida, and for Arkansas, I just hate it that it sets up so daunting when other teams like Ole Miss in recent years, they've had such light. I mean, they're playing Tulane and the Austin Peay's of the world in their early part, and then they'll have a Vanderbilt or last year it was Kentucky, and they tripped up at home against Kentucky, and if they don't lose that game or lose the late game against Florida, they're probably in the playoff, and that was their big opportunity, and they didn't make it happen. So, yeah, would I wish that Arkansas had a schedule like that one year in the conference? Sure. It just hasn't seemed like it's set up since I've been covering the team.
Now, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. You just wrote about South Carolina, right? I'm not misremembering that.
Yeah, I did.
All right, I was reading that, and I was reading it at 5 a.m. this morning, so my memory's a little foggy. But South Carolina's in a unique position, and we were kind of talking about this last week. You think in terms of just football programs while there's a lot of hype in Columbia, and deservedly so, they got a top 3 quarterback in the league, Lenore Sellers. That's the program I think we talked about a little bit that's most like you, right? In terms of where they are in the SEC, both came in 92. And they've had a couple of good years under Spurrier, one under, I guess, Holtz, and now they feel like they're going to roll under Beamer. Is that the most similar program, you think, Tom? I think we kind of agreed on that.
I think in a lot of ways, how they're regarded in their state. They do have Clemson in their state, but yes, I do think revenues equally or around the same, and just their level of success. Now, Arkansas, with the Southwest Conference days, clearly had a better football tradition, and Arkansas has better basketball. But I do believe they're comparable programs, and basically their relative stature in SEC football right now.
Tom, you mentioned AM. We're talking with Tom Murphy, by the way, Whole Hog Sports, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. I brought up the Kentucky and the 45% they're reportedly spending on basketball. I saw with NIL the last few years for Texas A&M, they spent $2 million on women's basketball or women's sports, and they spent $49 on men's sports. That's according to the Bryan, College Station Eagle, and Alex Miller. Tom, I guess my question to that would be, is it going to be so lopsided, you think, with the revenue distribution as well, kind of like it's been with NIL? Are women's sports just kind of, left out to dry to a certain degree when it comes to the distribution of funds for student athletes?
Well, it's certainly going to be a discrepancy, and we might see some lawsuits arise from that. But however, it's a product of revenue generation.
Yep.
And simply the revenue sports are in order: men's football, and then basketball. And a lot of schools don't make money on baseball. Arkansas is one of the few who does. But the other sports are losing money, and I don't know if there's a solution. But remember, this is revenue sharing. It's not scholarships and all those other things, cost of attendance, that still apply, that still make a scholarship very valuable. So I don't know if the numbers are going to be drastically different across the board, but you don't see a huge percentage given out to the women's sports at this time, and I don't know what would have to happen to change that. Attendance at places like South Carolina is good, and there's some others.
Yeah.
But you look across the SEC, it's not great in women's basketball even, which is kind of the premier sport. But you know what? OU, I think, is giving money to its gymnastics. They're a powerhouse, and they have been for a long time. So I think their gymnastics might get a little bit.
Tom, before we let you go here, mentioned taking away some things from some Sam Pittman. I like the Lake House quote that you were just talking about. Collectively, from last week, is there anything you think our audience needs to be made aware of, or maybe a big talking point from the Southeastern Conference or any other coach as we let you go this morning?
Well, that's a great question. I would say this. I came away from media days, and when you hear all summer, it doesn't seem to be a lot of excitement. There's not a thought that Arkansas is going to be a really strong SEC team. They might not contend. But when they have guys representing them, and I thought Taylor Green was much, much more like comfortable, even articulate. Last year, I thought his quotes ran a little bit long, and he repeated himself a little. I thought he was on point. He was very well spoken. All the guys were, super well dressed. Having Cam Ball was just a great thing for him to be back in Atlanta with his dad's picture around his pen. And then Xavier Story was a good spokesman. I think the only argument you could have made was Fernando Carmona would have certainly been a lot more gregarious, big talker than Xavier Story really is. But otherwise, good selections. And I don't know. I came away thinking, all right, maybe if they stay healthy, if they make improvements with Talon and the defense can do things to get pressure, then maybe they have a chance to give Notre Dame a good run. Maybe they give Ole Miss a good run on the road, and maybe change what the narrative of what people think of this season.
Tom, we'll leave it there, man. Good stuff as always. We'll chat. Tommy will be back with us on Thursday, and we'll continue to talk Arkansas football as we're 39 days out.
Sounds like a plan. See ya.
That's our buddy Tom Murphy, Whole Hog Sports, Arkansas Democrat-Gazette.
BetOnline continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball in full swing and football season right around the corner, BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB, UFC to tennis and NFL futures, BetOnline remains your choice for sports wagering information. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. BetOnline. The game starts here.